I've noted some areas of interest during my time of teaching. It changes every year, and in a way it's a barometer for what is happening in the country. One of the interests lately has been sustainability. Our students have also been interested in a return to traditional values, not necessarily a return to the physical, the way African architecture was, but more a return to the philosophy of an African way of life. What was the reasoning? What was the philosophy, for example, of how Africans looked at settlement? I'll give an example. Baganda settled on the mid-slopes, and they did not settle in the valleys. The valleys were seen as places for gods, for nature spirits. They did not settle on the hilltops because hilltops were seen as places of gods. So valleys, nature spirits, hills, hilltops, gods, and some nature spirits. But some people will see that as unscientific mumbo jumbo. But there is a very valid philosophy in that, and those are some of the areas that our students have been exploring, how to bring back the science to African thought.
You know, unfortunately, some of traditional architecture, as it were, is very quickly being wiped out. It now remains maybe some thatching in some tourism industry, you know, and bits and pieces of that. So we are actually lacking in even skills for the artisans who can look towards the traditional. We obviously have had a few standout cases, like the Kasubi Royal Tombs. I know in Palo Royal Tombs in Bunyoro. You know, those ones kind of stand out as the style of that time. But we haven't had a good experience because of the period of independence where I grew up being told that there were temporary houses, and all these houses we had, which had mud and water, were known to be temporary and permanent structures. The permanent ones were the ones made of blocks of brick and mortar and sheets. But you see, they don't fit in every situation, because some of the areas which are, of course, very humid or very hot around the year, when you put this sheet, it doesn't make for comfortable living. But then all those skills, somehow, we've lost them. So it's a challenge now, how we shift to have some balance, you know, orientation towards traditional, towards pre-independence, and the current. You know, currently it's interest, and that's where our problems come from in Kenya, because the client sees this 3D model quickly and jumps at it.
That's right.
So how it's constructed and put together is not an issue, and it has upset a lot of our flows and processes. So you design, but supervision is not in your.
Actually, I agree with you. The level of craftsmanship, be they carpenters, be they masons, be they, name it, it is really gone down. Because when you look at those old buildings, pre-independence, those cathedrals, you go to Namirembe Cathedral, you go to Rubaga Cathedral, you go to the banks, those old banks, Barclays, former Barclays Bank, you remember the former Greenleaf's Bank. You look at the craftsmanship, the timber work, a lot of timber work, you know, was being used in the architecture of those buildings. And we were talking about the brickwork in the cathedrals. You've got the fair-faced brickwork, which is standing for, you know, so many decades, you know, and again, you know, down to the fine details, which I think we really need to go back into. The issue of timber work is particularly challenging because I remember in those days, timber used to be properly seasoned. You know, timber would be purchased and naturally seasoned over several months before it could be used. So that, you know, allow people to work with timber and avoid the usual problems we get of shrinkage, of warping, which is very common in our buildings today.
Yes. I think it also extends to, like we said, it takes two to tango. Now, in our case, it takes three. The architect, the contractor, and the client. So I think we need to figure out a way of getting all these parties back to work together. Because the project is for everyone. And it's not something that you can fragment, actually, that's the point. Because these architects, why they had that iconic and clear buildings is from the start, stage 1 up to stage 8 of the process. They were involved, they were leading it from. And so when you talk about timber quality has declined. We look at the clay products. I was very fond of them actually because they're warm, especially for residential. I was having a chat the other day, the boss of Uganda clays, and he's working towards reviving, resetting some of these, you know, which is encouraging. So I think, of course, times change, but there are certain things that cannot change. And I think one of those things that should not change, and we as architects must ensure we stay on top of, is we are actually the leader of that, the team. Because we are the ones who conceive the idea, and we just have to work as a team.
That's right.
And the team starts with us as architects, but also the technical professionals, the planning. We need, of course, the planning back in the day when we were growing up, especially for urban areas, was cleaner and more organized and more settled. So we need to see this planning, especially neighborhood plans and so on, that we engage also with the planning. We have to engage with, of course, the engineering in terms of utilities and so on. You go to a new neighborhood like you can see out here, and the utilities are for residential. But what is coming up is commercial, with maybe 5-10 times the population that it can hold. So we cannot just stop at our architecture as our direct profession, but also how we connect, especially firstly with our technical professionals. I don't know what you think about that.
You see every day, nothing is being done on the services like drainage, water supply, the roads, and these huge structures are coming up. And then we also have that tendency of fighting the building bylaws. Building bylaw says a structure should not cover more than a certain percentage of the site. And you find someone, because it has influence with powers that be, he overrules everyone, and he builds a structure which almost takes up 90% of the plot. And then you have boundary walls coming up. You have a distance of less than a meter between the window. And it's affecting the people who are going to occupy. You think you are going to make money, but the life expectancy of that building is much shorter than what it should have been if someone had adhered to the bylaws. Maybe we don't have the people to reinforce those bylaws. I don't know, but they are there. They've always been there. Our friends, we're in the community where we shared the same kind of governance in architecture and everything. They took those bylaws and even improved on them to suit the modern times. Whereas for us, we lost them somewhere, and I don't know if they'll be. And new ones have come up, and then they never come into play. They stay on the shelves or on the computers or whatever. So I think there's need to get back to that organized and properly planned neighborhoods and cities, and this business of mixing commercial and residential, I think, is killing our profession.
Davy, the idea you come up with of the teamwork, I think is really critical. It cannot be overemphasized because particularly our friends, our colleagues, the planners, really need to help us by following the bylaws, like you say, and planning out proper neighborhoods. Because these days you see new estates with 4-meter road reserves coming up, and in the past, any subdivisions or neighborhood plans had to be approved before work would go on, but that is lacking now. So going forward, I think that teamwork is very critical, but it's really nice to be around, having been born before independence, and it's nice to be here celebrating Uganda's 60 years of independence. And I really wish the profession, our fellow architects, all the best as we move on after the 60 years of independence.
I think just to really sum up, I like the theme. I think I saw it on the social media of today's theme for the 60th anniversary, this year's theme, which is interdependence.
Right.
Not just independence, but interdependence, which speaks volumes about how we need each other, how we have to support each other, the seniors supporting the juniors, and the cross, discipline. And I was also encouraged, I think, by the symposium last week, where the National Planning Act, I think, is on the table now, is coming up, which like the whole country is going to be a planning area, which is very encouraging because all these cities and so on have to be planned. I was also encouraged by the head of the National Physical Planning Authority. She's actually trying to seek out architects to work together, so we should brace ourselves to do a little bit of neighborhood planning with them, which I think is very encouraging. And I think the enthusiasm and support is renewed and rekindled. I can only say after 60 years, we are set for really another chapter across. Looking forward, it looks bright.
It would be nice. I would like for me to see our country developing like other cities from our neighboring countries. I would like to see clean architecture. I'd like to see clean neighborhoods and better skylines. When you look at our cities, clean up our roads. Let tarmac be tarmac, not mud. And I'm looking for better development overall in our profession and together with other professions for the built environment in our country.
The hope for the future. What do I see in the future? It is my hope. It is my real hope that we do not go the Western way. This might be very unpopular, but I'll say it, that whereas there are many who are looking to go back to traditional thought and philosophy. There are many who are saying, let's develop big skyscrapers, big motorways. And I'm hoping we do not go the Western way because why make a mistake that others have made?